Today I have with me Chris Wilson on the show. Chris is a lifelong fitness and health advocate with nearly 25 years of experience in the fitness industry. Chris has worked alongside and learned from many leaders in the industry, such as Charles Poliquin, hopefully I'm pronouncing his name correctly, a mentor and friend, Prentiss, three-time world champion powerlifter, Lloyd Weinstein, four-time Mr. Olympia Jay Cutler, IFBB Pro, Darren Charles, Paluski, boy, I'm getting challenged with these names, and John Hansen, Big Aaron Reed, and his lifelong friend and owner of Critical Bench, Mike Westerdahl. Chris oversees the Strong by Design podcast show as well as the Critical Bench YouTube channels with over 1 million subscribers and over 4,000 videos. He resides in Clearwater, Florida with his wife of 17 years, Samantha, and their beautiful children, Kellen and Cameron. His passions outside of work: he loves the Lord, college, pro football, coaching youth baseball, dogs and cats. Love that. I have 4 dogs and a cat and a bird. Love it, love it. Traveling with his family game time and movie night, as well as listening to podcast, audiobooks, and loud music while driving to work. Chris, welcome to the show.
It's great to be here, Carol. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm looking forward to this discussion for many, many reasons. But before we dive in, I always like to ask individuals that are in health, nutrition, fitness, training, what led them there? Because I find that there's usually some type of underlying story, whether it's a parent that influenced, or friends, or just whatever. Do you have something that led you specifically to the fitness world?
It's a great question. I would say if I don't think about it for too long, my answer is this. I was very fortunate to have 2 older brothers who were identical twins. And I say were because unfortunately one of them has passed and is in heaven. But I was the baby brother, and my big brothers, Bob and Dave, 5 years older than I, were just absolutely the best big brothers a little brother could have. Great leaders, great people, beloved by their community, their friends, their coaches, their teachers. They really paved the way for me in a lot of ways. I was always Little Wilson growing up. I had a big reputation to live up to. Identical twin brothers that were well known, well liked, well respected, and I'm 5 years behind them. But as soon as people saw me or heard me, they're like, "Oh, that's a Wilson for sure," And so because we were so much alike. And so I really modeled my childhood and my sports life, my physical life after my brothers, because they were always just really good athletes, above average. They weren't necessarily above average in size or anything, but they always gave it just their very best, had big hearts, and super competitive, very fit, very active, and did multiple sports. And so that's what I wanted for me. They like, as I said, they were my model. So I just carried that with me. And I'll add one thing to that. My father was very much a disciplinarian, pretty rough around the edges, a bit abusive, and an alcoholic. However, I will say this about my dad, because he did have good qualities too. My dad was not a lazy man. My dad was always doing something. When I say that, I mean he was very fit. He belonged to the racquetball club where he would play racquetball and lift weights, and so he was always big into physical fitness. But we were always out working on wood, chopping trees and splitting up wood. And I grew up in the Northeast where you wanted wood for your winters. And and we were out landscaping or snow plowing or doing all of these things. So I just grew up with this go, go, go kind of mentality that, definitely was from the firm hand of my dad. And then obviously from a much more fun, more enjoyable side of things when it came to my brothers. So everyone in my life, and even my mom was just never sat still for a minute. So I just grew up in a family where we were just constantly on the go, constantly in motion. And so I was just caught up in it.
You know what I love is the reframe that you had where there was this abuse, this side of your dad, but rather than just kind of going completely down that rabbit hole, you pull out all of the positive things that you received from him, which I think is beautiful.
Thank you for noticing that. Yeah, it's one of those things where, the more time that goes by since he's been gone, and my dad passed many years ago in 2005. So I'm a man approaching 50 years old and have lived at this point, almost 2 decades without him. And the more I think back, or when I get to the chance to maybe mention him, I don't want it always to be, he was awful for this reason or that reason or the other. And yes, he was a human who made a lot of mistakes and messed up quite a bit, and don't we all? But I do like to remember and reflect back on the good things that he gave me, and the moments that I'll remember forever that helped to shape the man that I am today. Because there are good things and positive things that I can take from my childhood, and even the things that I didn't like that I can use as to my advantage now as a father of 2 kids. How can I be a better dad based on what I remember from my own father? So there's a lot of that going on. This kind of internal conversation that I always have in my mind as I'm answering questions like that. Yeah.
I feel like there's something that happens to all of us at that 50-year-old mark where we go back and we revisit something that we think, okay, that was 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, but all of a sudden it's to the forefront.
Yeah. No doubt about it. It becomes more, you understand things about your parents in a very different way once you are at the age that they were, or even older. Because you just see the world more like they saw the world probably when they were your parent and you were only 10 or 12 or 15. And, so there's these, and we should have perspective shifts as we get older. I would hope so, right? That's
Agreed.
part of wisdom and maturity is seeing things differently and growing.
I agree completely. And now you're a man of faith. Were you always a Christian, or did you come to your beliefs later?
Yeah. I grew up in the church. It was an grew up in an Episcopalian church, which is like one removed from Catholicism pretty much. So it was but you know what? I'll say this. I have zero negative memories of my church family, and the pastor of our church was just a regular guy. He, married, family. He actually raced cars. He had multiple Porsches. He was just like this is stuff from his career prior to becoming a pastor. A love that he had, of cars or working on cars or driving cars and stuff. So I remember like these kind of cool factor built into like the pastor, but he was also a very loving man, a very approachable man. And we had a great congregation of people, old, young. I was in youth group. We did trips, mission trips or, good things. So what I remember is just remember very kind people who were really looking to make the community better, who were reaching out and touching lives and doing good things. And I don't have some of the stories that people, I was forced to go. And I mean, sure. I mean, when I was 9, would I have made my own decision to go to church, on Sunday at 8 a.m.? Probably not. That's why you have parents, because you don't make great choices as a child,
True.
right?
Mhm.
And but I remember sitting there and listening to the sermons and some of those takeaways and hearing stories about Jesus and things that mattered and things that helped shape me as a small person. And again, I have great positive memories sitting in the pew. You're supposed to be quiet with your brothers, and then you start giggling, and you're getting looks from your parents. And then my dad would do the inevitable. He had these. You can see my hand. He had like really strong hands, and so he would like take his vice grip hands and put it right on your knee and squeeze, to get your attention to be quiet. And so it's just stuff like that I remember fondly, and I still laugh about it today with my brother Bob about some of those old church stories, or the old guy who can't hear well anymore, and turns to his wife who can still hear, and what did he say? What was that? And just as a kid, you think it's hilarious because you got this guy who's just about deaf who can't hear the sermon, and he's having a full out conversation that everyone can hear. And so just things like that make me laugh. And I still that's the one good thing about, I'll say, with some of the social channels out there, like the Facebook and things like that, is the connection to people from your past that you maybe don't even live in the same state anymore, but you can still kind of be in each other's lives to some degree, and you have this long history together. People who I haven't seen in decades, who will still see that my family growing up and see a photo of me coaching my son's baseball and be like, hey, way to go, Chris, or that's great, or just something. And it makes you feel good. Like, man, that's somebody that knew me as a child, and they're seeing me now as a dad and a husband and making a difference in my community. And this is someone that's maybe 60 or 70 years old, my senior, who was in my life as a 20 or 30 something when I was a little 7-year-old, so it's really neat. And it goes back to that whole perspective thing. And so, yeah, I have nothing but fond memories of growing up in the church. And I'm a truth seeker is what I'll say. And I think if more truth and more kindness and more desire to make the world better, if more people lived that way every day, we would change the world. We just, but we don't all see the world the same way, and that's okay. We're not supposed to. That's what makes the world great, is that we have different ways of seeing things, but we need to be able to come together. And I don't necessarily want to make it like a whole different conversation, but I just actually happened to see last night, and I can't help but mention it. Jordan Peterson spoke down here in Tampa, Florida, and he's a very world-renowned psychologist and author and speaker, and he had just had great insights and just a highly educated man who really speaks the truth well, and it's good to hear, and we just need that messaging more in the world because there's a lot of untruth.
There
These
is,
days.
and a lot of negativity and bickering, and
Yes.
Christianity is often
Yes.
seen in this very judgmental and negative light. And I would really like to see
Yeah.
that change, because that's not what it's about. And it is
No.
about speaking
Correct.
truth and sharing love and seeing everyone as a child of God.
That's right. 100%. Well said. Yeah.
Something we were discussing before we hopped on, we were talking about your business, your principles. And I feel like people put things in these little buckets. So here's my work bucket, my family bucket. Now I'm in church, and I believe in this integrative approach. So when I'm working in my business, my faith is a part of that. It's not separate. It's not that I'm preaching to people. I'm definitely not. But it's
Right.
a part of how I conduct myself. How do you marry together the fitness world and faith?
Yeah. It's a great question. And I think it comes down to establishing for yourself personally or in your business or both, founding guiding principles. You can refer to them as core values, which is what we refer to ours as, or guiding principles, or key principles, or something. There was several years ago when our team was smaller, and the founder of the company happens to also be one of my oldest friends. We've been friends for over 30 years. And we got together, and he was conflicted. He's like, I've been in business for many years, and I really don't have, I'm trying to work out my vision for the business. And what's our real mission? What's our real purpose here, But he said, in order to do that, I really need to know, what do we stand on as a business? What's our foundation? And so we brought in a mentor of ours that's a dear friend, and he's a wonderful man. And we just respect him as a business leader and as a wise guy, a very wise man. And so we, it's good to get this kind of outside insight into your business, right? Seeing your business and your purpose with fresh eyes. And so we brought him in for a whole day, and we sat with him, and we had this meeting to develop our core principles, our core values as a business. And that's where we actually established our mantra, Strong by Design, or You Are Strong by Design. And it eventually became the name of our podcast, but this is years prior to that. And so Dr. Ron Eccles, he comes in, and we establish these 7 things. Now in order to remember the 7, we came up with a silly acronym so that people that work here could remember all 7 words, but it's PIGS PDF is the funny acronym for it, which makes no sense. It has no bearing on the value. It just helps you remember the words, right? So what the words are, it's passion, it's integrity, it's gratitude, service, positive attitude, decisiveness, and faith. And each one of those things is defined very simply, like a very quick phrase or one sentence definition of how those are applied in the business. And those have made all the difference for us. It's how we conduct ourselves in business. It's how we conduct ourselves in our business relationships with our team, with our contractors, the way we go about creating a product. Everything we do kind of is filtered through this lens of core values. And so if we need to cut off a relationship because it's not meeting a standard, or if we have to cut off a program or a product that's not meeting this standard, or a team member, I recently, a good example would be we had to hire a number of people for our customer support, and I oversee customer support, so I hired 5 people at the same time. And several of them overseas, one of them here in the U.S. And so I got them going. They're in the training. They're almost out of their 90-day probationary period, which, we look at everybody as a brand new probationary employee until they get through 3 months. And the one gentleman had an issue with integrity because he was sick, but he had his wife sending in end of day summaries as if he was still working, even though he wasn't working. He was actually in the hospital. And so I said, geez, I mean, this feels like an integrity issue here, that you were saying you were doing work that you weren't doing, and you had your spouse actually lie for you, essentially. And I said, there was no questions asked. It was like, this is not going to work. And so he was immediately removed from the position. But that's how you need to operate in business this way, in order for consistency and in order for your culture to really be established. People, when they're hired here, they know what our core values are in the application process. So coming into it, there's no illusions. And listen, we all get along very well. There's like 6 or 7 of us always in this building on a daily, and we have like another 15 or some odd contract workers that, if some full-time and some part-time, that work all around the country for this business. But these core values inside these walls are a game changer, and it keeps people here. As much as it allows us to make quick decisions on who shouldn't be here, it really does a good job of handling things. Things are non-issues, I think, because of these core values, and good businesses have these. I mean, this is nothing new. But really good established businesses have founding principles and they stick to them, and it's a good, powerful thing to have. And we should, as individuals, have the same thing. So I've pretty much adopted most of these core values for me individually, just as a human being. And take quick action on things. Don't think on things for too long. Just go. Pull the ripcord. Like get GSD. Look at my shirt. GSD. Get the clean version of this is get stuff done. Right. It's just get moving. Get going. Integrity. That's easy. It's being honorable, being honest, being forthright, being somebody that no one thinks twice when you say something. They believe what you have to say, and you have a track record of that. You have good character. Service, give back, give to others, be a go-giver, and the more you give, it comes back tenfold. Positive attitude, show up with the right attitude. Even if you're having a tough day, do your best for it to just be maybe a bad moment, not a bad day, and just be thankful and that bleeds right into gratitude. So be grateful for your many blessings. We're all so very blessed. If you're listening to this podcast, you're probably a very blessed person who has a lot of things to be grateful for. Passion, every day, you find something to be passionate about. I hope you're living your life and doing something that brings you joy and passion, and I'm fortunate I get to do that. And then, of course, faith, as I said. Faith is kind of behind all of this. Faith in yourself, faith in your creator, faith in the people in your team, the people you work with, faith that the customers will be there for the hard work, all of this stuff. That faith and hope kind of run together, and without faith and hope, what do we really have?
That's true. That's true. And I always think of hope as something very certain, not a pie in the sky kind of, well, maybe. To me, it's a certainty, and that's helped me a lot.
That's right. Absolutely right. Yep.
Now, you talked about passion, and I want to lean into that a little bit because I talk a lot with my audience about this, my clients about it. I work mainly with midlife women and beyond, 50s, 60s, and up. And I'm always saying you cannot live your purpose, your passion, without that health. That all goes together, because I see a lot of people are hitting midlife and they're sick. They're dealing already on their way to chronic diseases. Are you seeing the same thing?
Yes. I've gotten the opportunity to speak with a lot of people that are doing work like yourself, who are in either the online space or the more like brick and mortar type environment, and people that are experts in the field, all different backgrounds, Ayurvedic medicine and holistic health practitioners, right, and people that really have like decades of working around people and helping guide people. And yeah, there's a lot of this, a lot of chronic illness and chronic disease, and that's really preventing people from living their best life, their passion-filled existence. It's kind of robbing them of it. And the two do definitely go together. I think it's really hard when you don't feel right cognitively, and you don't take good care of your gut, and those two are directly linked.
Yes.
I think it's very hard to live an enjoyable or passion-filled life because you're never quite feeling right or at your best. And in order to max out or hit your potential, be at your very best for yourself and for others, it starts with you. It starts with taking good care of yourself, and that's through daily movement and daily good habits of drinking enough water and good nutrition and enough protein and vitamins and minerals and all of that stuff. And that's where I think the people and I'm sure you've noticed this, the people that really go above and beyond and taking care and nurturing them, their bodies, seem to have this glow and this energy about them. And it's no coincidence. I feel like the more you are able to invest in yourself and take good care of yourself, the more you're able to shine and be a light for other people, and really let your passion. I mean, my eyeballs pop out of my head sometimes when I talk, but it's just because, and I didn't even get that much sleep last night because I was up late going to the Jordan Peterson thing and talking with some friends afterwards, and had to get up early for the kids this morning. But you can get away with that if you're doing all the right stuff. You can get away with a few 5 or 6 hour nights of sleep if need be on occasion. But that's another part of it too, is the sleep patterns and all of this stuff. And so bad habits in life, whether it's nutritional bad habits or device bad habits, those things can really cost you when it comes to your rest, your sleep, your nutrition, all of this stuff. And so establishing those good habits really has been a game changer for me. And I notice it too in little ways. I've been reading books more at night and watching less television. And what that's doing for me is it's getting me more drowsy earlier. And so I am falling asleep earlier and getting better sleep scores when I wake up in the morning. So I'm getting more sleep, better quality sleep, because I'm starting to remove television from my life and devices.
Oh, yes.
And I'm doing more reading, like actual hold in your hand book, old school reading. And not to say that tablet reading is bad or anything, but I really like getting away from the devices altogether, and just a nice big thick book that you can really get into, that I look forward to reading as much as any television series I've ever gotten into. Like, I can't wait to get back into that story that I'm in the middle of. And so that's been a really fun thing for me, because I've always enjoyed reading and writing ever since I was little. And so that's something I'm passionate about as well. So I know I have these kind of long, drawn out answers for some of your questions, but
No, it's
I
perfect.
feel like there's so much of this is all stacked on top of each other. It's very hard to have a very short answer to some of these kind of big questions, because there are so many reasons behind it. Passion doesn't just come from, oh, I like what I do, so I'm passionate when I wake up in the morning. It's like, well, no, there's got to be a lot of other things that play into that, So, but yeah, we can go on and on and on talking about passion. I'm kind of an over passionate type guy, sometimes to a fault. Overly enthusiastic. Ask all my son and all of his buddies that I've been coaching in baseball, or my team members here. Sometimes I have a tendency to kind of go a bit too much because I care so much, and I'm trying to energize other people. But it's almost to a fault, as I said.
I do the same. I think it comes with being in fitness, health, nutrition, that space, and talking to so many people on my podcast. I see that passion about what they do, about what they believe, about what they're making a difference in the world with. And something you said, investment, because I was thinking about this. It was a few weeks ago. I was a guest on a podcast, and I thought, wow, we invest in our finances. We invest in stocks, which, boy, that could be a good thing or a bad thing. But we don't invest in a sure thing, which is our health. And with all of the things, the sleep, the stress management, faith, dealing with past trauma, the nutrition, the exercise, we don't make the investment into that bank.
Yes. Exactly right. A lot of us are caught, not all of us, but many of us are caught in that hamster wheel of life. And not to say that there aren't patterns to all of our lives. There are, and there should be, because patterns are good. But oftentimes in our patterns are not so good things, maybe bad habits preventing us from growing or getting to that next level. And we get stuck in bad patterns. And so just as I mentioned about like the reading more at night, that was a bad pattern for me, was watching a show after my wife would go to bed. It's like I like the unwinding of the evening once the kids are asleep, and it's 9 o'clock. I like that those last hour or two, before I go to bed, to have like some of my own time. But I was using that time poorly by just sitting and watching Netflix shows. So I kind of had this at some point last fall. I was like, a buddy of mine had said, "Hey, you should read this book." So I start reading it, and then I just start reading it more later. And then once I finished that, my wife had bought me a big, thick fiction book over Christmas, and I started diving into that, and it's several hundred pages, and so I've just really enjoyed that. And I'm not saying you need to read in order to make your life better. I'm just saying find those little things in your life. Maybe it's you're drinking too much diet soda, and you need to start replacing some diet soda with some water, or maybe you're starting every day off with something highly sugary that you maybe should try to substitute with eggs or something else. Like substitution and baby steps and little changes add up to really big things weeks and months down the line. And so I think all of us could make this kind of reflect for just a moment of what are a lot of the good things we're doing and what are some of the bad things that we're doing. How can we do more of the good, less of the bad, and start to move in that direction of what we see for ourselves in those next 2 to 3, 5 years down the line, right? And more people need to spend more time in thought and thinking and critically thinking about where they see themselves and their health. And in order to do, and by doing that, you are better for other people in your life, right? If I take care of myself well, I'm a better husband to my wife. If I treat myself well and get the rest and the exercise and the nutrition and water and all that stuff, if I do that right, I'm a better dad for my kids. I have better energy. It'll help me be more patient in a key moment, or just be more understanding, or be more involved. And so all of those things, they all do play into, and don't minimize it. It all matters. And so these are things that, again, talk about perspective. These are things I did not give much thought, certainly 20 years ago, and not enough thought, certainly 10 years ago. But I like to think that I'm wising up here, and I'm starting to realize, what matters and where I need to invest. That word again, invest my efforts, my time, and my attention, because we only have so much time, so let's, when you're young, you feel like you got all the time in the world. But once you get to that midlife, I think you start to realize, like, I want these next 45, 50 years to really be meaningful and purposeful. And I've made enough blunders and enough goofy mistakes, right? Let's get past some of that stuff. I don't need to redo or relive any of that.
I hear you. I'm 61 and I have no desire to go back and repeat some of
Oh,
those past
wow. Good for
mistakes.
you. No, good, good work. Good work. Still looking good.
Thank you. But I didn't really wake up till I was 50. It was interesting. It was
Yeah.
just this switch in my thinking about nutrition. I mean, it's always active. That wasn't an issue, but it was just a complete shift about nutrition mainly.
Yeah.
And I loved you touched upon these swap outs because when you
Mm,
take something away, you have to put something back. And I tell my clients this, it's my nutrition philosophy. It's like, let's crowd out the ultra processed food and choose more of the good things.
that's right. It is. It's crowding it out. You're exactly right. It's very hard to overeat healthy food. Let me explain my point on that. Your body is a unbelievable adaptable machine, right? And so if you overeat bad fats, sugars, things that you only need in small doses, or not at all, your body does a great job of holding on to that and storing it. But your body doesn't do that with protein. It utilizes it, or it flushes it away.
Mm-hmm.
So if your focus becomes protein, then it's very hard to overeat protein. Very hard. I've tried it. It's very hard to eat too much
It
chicken
is.
breast, too much fish, too much steak, too many eggs. Like it's hard to do. But if that becomes more of the centerpiece of a lot of the meals, or throw whatever your protein of choice is, and then you fringe eat with fresh things that go bad quickly. Let's say that. How about that? Colorful foods that are more fresh, that will go bad quickly, that cannot sit on a shelf in a package for months at a time. I mean, other than something being canned, and obviously there's arguments there for that being healthy, but there's some decent canned stuff, or there's certainly fermented foods, right? That fermented vegetables and things that can be very good for you, sauerkrauts and cabbages and things like that can sit in your fridge for months at a time. But filling your diet in with those types of items and starting to crowd out, as you said, the processed foods. But it is a replacement game. It's kind of like a smoker just quitting cold turkey. How well is that going to go? Probably not well. Most people will fail at that. There are exceptions. And so you'll need to have another probably oral option to go to if smoking's your nemesis and you want to get away from that, and probably downgrade to something else that has an oral, satisfies that oral fixation that people will have. And eventually you can kind of keep moving the mark and keep kind of changing the mark. Well, it works the same way with food addictions and food habits. And so if high sugar items are your go-to in the morning, and start to replace it with maybe higher fat items that are on the healthy side. And there are great healthy sources of fat that would be far better for your body than, donuts and muffins and sugary coffee drinks and things that people will gravitate to quite often in the morning. And you do that enough, and before you know it, you're like, I wasn't even trying, and I lost 5 to 10 pounds just because I started substituting
Mm-hmm.
a few
Mm-hmm.
things, And
Yeah.
so that's you and I are on the same page with this, and this is something that obviously we both have talked about with our audience or with our clientele base. Yeah.
Yes, the protein piece, though huge for everyone, but women,
Yeah.
because those changes they go through when they transition past age 50,
Mhm.
they lose that protection of certain hormones, they lose bone density, lose muscle. It's just critical. And that and weightlifting are something that I'm continually talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. The resistance training, especially for the ladies, is such a big deal. And we're not talking heavy weights, but heavyweight shouldn't run from heavyweights either. Heavyweights are good when done properly. But yeah, putting that force on the bones and on the muscles, and just I would say that goal of daily activity. It doesn't mean you have to do strength training every day, but you have to have a goal of every day there's movement in your life, whether that's walking or biking or swimming or hiking or something every single day. Because once you stop moving is when your body will start breaking down. And so I call those active recovery days. Just because you're not in the gym or not picking up dumbbells or following a workout routine doesn't mean you can't still strengthen essentially your body, or work on your cardio respiratory health, or your movement of the body is what helps circulation, and it helps the lymph system work better, right? It's why do they say, well, go for a walk after you eat? It helps your body digest foods better. It's energizing to get up and be vertical and go for a walk, to just be outside in nature and get some fresh sun on your face for 10 or 15 minutes in the middle of your day is more energizing than an energy drink. It's reshaping people and in educating them and getting them to try some of these things and adopt these new lifestyle habits.
Movement is huge. I mean, obviously the weight training needs to be there, a little bit of cardio, the right kind of cardio, but movement is kind of totally different. That could be anything: walking the dog, gardening, parking a little bit further from the entrance to the grocery store, just little things like that. Yeah. But I find that people are focused on, okay, I'm going to sit all day and then go to the gym and do something for 30 minutes. And it doesn't have much of an impact because they were sitting all day.
That's right. Yeah, sitting, what we say in one of our programs, sitting is the new smoking. I don't know how new it is now, because
I've heard that too.
We've been sitting for decades now, but it really is. It's a killer. It's a killer because you're just sedentary. You are. I mean, in my job, I sit for a living, but we go out of our way here, working on computer all day long, and go out of our way to go for walks, I have a gym right outside my office here. We do weekly yoga. We do strength training, every other day of the week on a non-yoga day. But I'm constantly up and moving around, and then before and after work, I sit very little. So I'm able to make up for it. But your point was great, because a 30-minute workout will not undo 10 hours of sitting. It just will not. It just will not do it. So what does that mean? If you are still going to be sitting for 10 hours a day, because maybe that's your career, well, then that 30 minutes of activity needs to actually be more like 5 hours. And what I mean by that is, if you're not sleeping and you're not sitting at your desk working, you are moving. You are out and about doing something with your life, because the sitting on the rump in that half fetal position where you're dripping cortisol, because that's just how our bodies work. That's not what's going to move you in a better direction at all. Our body, if you go back several hundred years, people weren't idle ever.
Never.
People were never idle. People are always on the move, and they had to walk. They had to move in order to survive. And we're at this stage of life. It's very interesting in our world today, where in most cultures, in most countries, you can just sit all day long and make a good living and theoretically have a decent life. But how good is your life if you're not moving? I feel like life for me stops when I'm not moving.
I'm the same way. I'm busy all the time when I'm not sitting here doing work on my laptop. But I was looking at the blue zones, and it's so interesting, those areas of the world where people live to be 100 plus. And the one thing they have in common, couple of things: they eat a cleaner diet. It varies depending on where they live, but also that movement. They never stop moving.
That's right. It's absolutely 100% right. I live in Florida. So I'm down here in beautiful Clearwater, Tampa, Florida. I've been here, well, I've been in Florida for 20 years. I've been on this coast and in this area for many, many years. And I love it. And what I really enjoy, is when I'm with my family or not, or maybe I'm just noticing it when I'm out and about on my own. And I'll look around and I'll see these older couples hand in hand walking on the sidewalk or, on a nice day. And they just look happy. And I don't think it's a facade. I think it's really, because they're up, they're vertical, they're moving, they're outside, they're in the world. They're not secluded or isolated at home away from other people. I think that's a killer. And that is a big part of aging. And we all have to consider that every one of us has someone in our life who's older and that we care about. And how isolated are those people? And if they are isolated, they're probably not moving very much or not enough. So the more that people can get up and move, and just walking as the easiest form of activity, right? But also the most meaningful in some regards, because of what it does for your brain, and then just what it does for your mood, and putting weight on your legs. The legs are key. There's studies. You mentioned studies on things, and I mean there's studies that date back decades of the power of strength training on the legs and how it has a total impact on the body. When you just focus on strength training the legs themselves, the upper body is still involved automatically. So it's more of an emphasis, I would say, on the lower body training, because the upper body stuff almost has a way of taking care of itself. And that's why you see so many of these women that are aging so beautifully, like yourself, because so many of the women do focus more where the women feel strong. They feel strong in their legs, right? They feel strong. And men we tend to be more upper body strength, right? Or big arms and shoulders and chest and stuff like that. And that's all great and well. And we are, I love developing those muscles as much as any man, but I really feel that true long-term strength and movement really comes from an emphasis or focus on training the lower body. And hiking, as I brought up or mentioned earlier, hiking has been cited as probably the greatest activity for older people and how it translates to mood and cognitive function because of its diversity of challenges and movement patterns of the body. Hiking is just an absolutely wonderful thing. Not to mention all of the other things in nature, sights and sounds and fresh air and sunlight and all of those other things that play into it. But the power of having to walk a path and navigate that path and what it does to you mentally and how you have to change your gait and your steps and your tempo and all of these things. And so it's just hiking is just, for me, it's the number one form of activity. Certainly for older people.
I agree on that 100%. My husband and I have just really gotten back into it. When we were raising kids, it was difficult. We would take them hiking, but not go as far as what we used to. But now we've taken up the rucksacks, so the weighted rucksacks, and you don't need a whole lot, but you just go out there and you're getting that heel strike. So you're getting some bone density. You're upping the intensity. And then hiking is a lot of that zone 2 cardio, unless you're powering up a hill. And that zone 2 is associated with longevity. And I think it's a wonderful place to start. Plus you're training on that downhill. I mean, we've got some big mountains here in New Mexico. On that downhill, you got to learn to put on the brakes. And if you got that ruck pack on, you got a little momentum going down the hill. So it's training you for later in life to catch yourself from a fall.
Yeah. Yes, I love all of that. And I'm in the same, my wife, I have a younger family. My wife and I got started a little late. So I have an 11-year-old and a nearly 8-year-old. But we can do some good hikes now with the kids at those ages. They can push for several miles. But the thing I love about it is that with a hike, there's a destination. And there's a feeling of accomplishment, especially if you're summiting something. You're starting here and you're summiting, and then you're returning back to maybe where you started from. But there's this underlying theme where people love to be able to finish things, don't they? I think in life, people love to be able to conquer things and complete things, finish things. It feels good. There's something rewarding about it. And I think that's, if you go on like a 3-mile hike or something or whatever, or a big loop, or there's something about it. You're not doing part of it. You're doing the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And it's like stacking these little victories, these little mini triumphs together. And then you're constantly testing yourself. Oh, well, that was good, but I feel like we could even do more. Let's do the longer trail next time. Let's do the steeper hike next time. And there's something that's satisfying about it that is like in our own competitive natures. And I think that's good. It's healthy. And it's who you're competing with, yourself.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And so and I think it's like the 1% better. Like you're just always, how can I just, and I've seen, like I said, I've been on hikes with my wife where there was a guy running past us upwards. Mm-hmm. He was probably at least 15 years older than me. Incredible shape. And my wife and I looked at each other, and then we caught him again because we were walking because we were with our kids, so we could go so fast. We caught him coming back down, right? So he had already ran to the top of where we were walking to. He's coming back down. We're still on our way up. I said something to him, and he told me, I said, how many times do you do this? He goes, oh, I'll go up and down at least 3 or 4 times.
Wow.
And I do that multiple times a week. And we just looked at each other, and I said, this guy is probably 65 plus years old, has the body of a 30-year-old, and just blew me away with his ability to navigate this terrain is so fast. And I just marveled at it. And I said that would be nice to be that guy when I get older. Like to be in that kind of shape and commitment. I mean, how cool is that? And so anyway, I just thought I'd add that in because that's something to aspire to. If you can run up a hill, you're in good shape. Trust me.
It is very inspiring. And I think looking ahead, like how do I want to age? And a lot of people, I don't think they want to go there in their mind. It's like, oh, I don't want to think about getting older. I don't want to think about mortality. But I'm always thinking, okay, what kind of 85-year-old do I want to be? And that's how I live now because I'm training for that.
That's right. That's right. To you, it's not about the fear of aging. It's about how can I get there gracefully? Mm-hmm. Doing it the way I'm doing it right now. It's just I'm gonna, in my mind, when I see myself older, I see myself doing exactly what I'm doing now.
I do
for
too.
the most part. I'm just just a little bit in a slightly different way. I've modified it to some degree, but I'm still able to do all of it, and you got to scrap that, like thinking like, oh, when you get to 80, you're just old, or I can't do this or do that anymore. No, look at Jack LaLanne.
Oh, wasn't he incredible? And he even had that terrible car accident where I think he just about broke every bone in his body.
Yep.
Yeah, amazing man.
But
amazing.
He was a total. If someone listening not familiar with him, then please look him up. And just an amazing human being, especially in the world of in the fitness industry. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I grew up. I'll date myself here, watching him on TV and doing jumping jacks with Jack LaLanne.
That's right. The Godfather.
Well, this has been incredible, Chris. I've really, really enjoyed our conversation, and I want to be respectful of your time. So as we wrap up, first of all, was there anything I didn't ask you that you'd like to share with the listeners? And second of all, how they can get in contact with you?
Yeah. Oh, you did touch on it briefly in the beginning. I have the honor of managing and hosting. I'm one of the hosts on our podcast, the Strong by Design podcast show. And so any of your listeners, we would love if you check ours out, add it to the mix along with Carol's. And because I know I'm at the point now, geez, I must have 10 different podcasts that I like to listen to, because once you hear somebody and you like their spirit or their voice or their subject matter, it's you kind of just check back in on a regular, and then you can kind of binge on them for like a week or two and then switch over to somebody else. It's a fun way of consuming podcasts. But the Strong by Design podcast, we're coming into our we're in our 5th season, so we're just about 200, and we're going to be hitting 300 episodes here very soon. Actually, with past bonus content, we're over 300, I think. But I've just been so grateful for the experience, the conversations like this that I've had with people over the years, people far smarter than I, where I get to learn from them and get to know them, and people that I'll stay in touch with after the fact who have become friends. And it's just a wonderful experience. So come enjoy the Strong by Design podcast. And then the business side of things is, the company I work for is criticalbench.com. We've been around for almost 25 years now, and we create great fitness and health publishing products that people can easily use in the comfort of their own home, many of these things. And if you're interested, the best place probably to learn about a lot of what we do is to check us out on YouTube. So if you're on YouTube, just type in Critical Bench. The name of our gym is The Compound, and that's our secondary channel. Critical Bench Compound is our second YouTube channel. And so just type Critical Bench in on YouTube, and you'll have thousands of free videos to binge on for as long as you want. We've been very active there, and it's grown quite big over the years. So we have just a wonderful content and great coaches and people who've contributed over the years. So and we talk about everything: workouts, exercise tips, and instruction and coaching, nutrition, you name it, mobility, stretching, yoga. We touch on all of it, and many things. We've made hundreds of videos, just for parts of the body, and so it's really, really fun. Yeah.
That's fantastic. I'll make sure that all of this is in the show notes. I know the listeners will get a lot of value from the YouTube channel, because they're always asking me for that type of content. So that is great. I really appreciate you being on the show. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much, Carol. It's been great.
And to our listeners, wherever you are in the world, we wish you every blessing. Bye-bye.